Mandy Black felt her heart pound erratically as the elevator doors slid open on her office floor. She clutched her travel mug, still half full with lukewarm coffee, and forced a bright smile at the receptionist before she made her way down the corridor. The company's open-plan workspace was bustling with the usual Monday morning chatter, people complaining about the weekend being too short, others hurriedly scanning emails. Everything seemed ordinary. Yet for Mandy, an indescribable tension curdled in the pit of her stomach. She reached her cubicle and set the mug down, her mind flicking briefly to the swirl of small changes she had noticed in her husband Eric's demeanor over the last few months. He had been quieter, less open. She had told herself it was the lingering stress of his final deployment to Afghanistan or some leftover trauma from his previous tours in Iraq. But deep down, she knew there was another reason lurking behind his still eyes and slow, measured words. No more than 15 minutes later, while scrolling through spreadsheets she was supposed to finalize for an upcoming meeting, Mandy heard a distinctive commotion. People were gasping, chairs scraping the floor, and suddenly a hush rippled across the office. She looked up to see a well-dressed older man in a charcoal gray suit striding purposefully toward her cubicle. His shoes clicked with an ominous rhythm against the polished floor. Several colleagues turned to watch him pass, curiosity etched on their faces. He stopped just a few feet from Mandy's desk and said, loudly enough for the entire adjacent department to hear, "Amanda Black?" Mandy's heart sank. There was something in his voice, formal, resolute, and tinged with regret. Instantly, she knew this was not about a client meeting or an external project. Her mouth felt dry as she slowly rose from her chair. "Yes, I'm Amanda," she replied, voice wavering, as she stole a glance at her best friend Kit, who sat only 2 cubicles away. The man cleared his throat and bowed his head in what might have been a small gesture of sympathy. Then he pulled out a stack of official-looking documents from his briefcase. "Amanda Black," he said gravely, "you have been served." He projected each word with deliberate clarity, making sure every single person in the vicinity could hear. Time seemed to freeze. Mandy felt lightheaded, like the oxygen had been sucked from the building. A stunned silence settled over the large open workspace. Usually, her colleagues would chatter, type, or talk on the phone, but now they were dead silent. All eyes had swung toward her. The man placed the thick envelope on her desk. Mandy wanted to speak, shout, cry, protest, but her tongue felt impossibly heavy. Then, with swift theatrics, the man reached into the side pocket of his briefcase and pulled out what appeared to be a standard-sized photograph. To her horror, he lifted it up for everyone to see. Her own face stared back at her from the photograph, disheveled and intimately close to another man, Sean Thompson, the business manager from the 3rd floor. They were clearly in a hotel room. Mandy's cheeks flamed with mortification. She could hear scattered gasps and murmurs behind her. Some spectators craned their necks. Others looked away, embarrassed. But the lawyer, if that was indeed who he was, kept rotating the photo, as though ensuring every onlooker got a good look. "Divorce papers," he stated coldly, tapping the envelope with 2 fingers. He shifted his gaze, scanning the crowd that had formed. "And evidence," he added, brandishing more pictures in his hand. "I believe that settles the question of Miss Black's infidelity." Mandy's vision blurred. She felt her legs shaking, her knees threatening to buckle. A furious swirl of shame, anger, and fear bloomed in her chest. Finally, she could only mouth the word, "No." She reached a trembling hand to try and snatch the photos away from his grip, but the man calmly withdrew them, tucking them back into his briefcase. "It's all quite conclusive," he said dispassionately, turning to address the mortified onlookers. "My client regrets that matters have come to this, but Miss Black has left him no choice." A strangled sob caught in Mandy's throat. She sank back into her office chair with a quiet whimper, clutching the envelope as if it were a live grenade about to detonate. After a beat, she shakily stood up, then collapsed onto her knees beside her desk, tears staining her cheeks. She heard the first wave of hushed whispers crest behind her, like a swarm of gnats. Everyone was gossiping. The once sociable, flirty blonde was now the center of the biggest scandal their branch had ever witnessed. Kit hurried over, her heels clicking on the laminate. She crouched next to Mandy and placed a comforting arm around her shoulders. "Mandy," she murmured, voice thick with empathy. "Come on, let's get you out of here, away from all these eyes." But Mandy was frozen, staring with vacant eyes at the envelope's bold words. Petition for dissolution of marriage. A tear splattered on the document. He made this so..." She couldn't finish her sentence. Humiliation radiated like a fever through her body. The attorney snapped his briefcase shut. "You have been officially served, Miss Black. The photographs remain with me, but rest assured they have been shared where necessary," he announced. Then, with impeccable posture and a courteous inclination of his head, he turned and marched back through the parted sea of spectators. As soon as he vanished through the main doors, the murmuring exploded. Kit tugged gently at Mandy's arm. "Girl, get up, please. Everyone's staring." Mandy let out a ragged breath, tried to stand, but her knees wobbled and gave out again. At that moment, something within her cracked. All of the guilt and stress she had been repressing for months, the self-loathing, the fear of Eric's discovery, poured out in a shrill sob. She collapsed fully this time, her knees hitting the carpet. A small gasp rippled through the watchers. A few were wide-eyed with pity, while others wore expressions of prurient fascination. "Stop staring," Kit hissed at them before crouching down. She looped Mandy's arm over her shoulder and hauled her to her feet. "We're going to the conference room. Come on." One or two people tried to approach, but Kit waved them away. She led Mandy down the aisle, one unsteady foot after another, until they reached the glass-walled conference room at the far end of the floor. Kit closed the blinds on the window that faced the main workspace and let out a trembling sigh as she helped Mandy lower into a chair. Mandy felt the lump in her throat swell. He showed the photo to everyone," she choked out. "He actually displayed it. Everyone saw it." Kit's eyes burned with protective anger. "That is vile. I had no idea he'd do something so extreme." She glanced at the envelope in Mandy's hand. "Did Eric mention anything before this? Any sign he would do something so theatrical?" Mandy tried to speak, but a sob escaped instead. She could only shake her head. Another wave of humiliation and heartbreak tore through her as she recalled the previous night. Eric had barely said a word to her after dinner. He had locked himself in his study with a laptop. She had assumed he was searching for new job opportunities or finalizing some plan to leave the military behind. Now it was clear he had been orchestrating this final act of betrayal. For several minutes, Kit simply held Mandy while she cried. Outside the blinds, an endless trickle of coworkers ambled by, trying to catch glimpses or exchange hush-hush theories. Some took genuine pity. Others, after having witnessed the photo, felt she had gotten what she deserved. It was an emotional labyrinth that threatened to swallow Mandy whole. Then the door burst open, and Mr. Simon Samuels, the vice president and head of their branch, a tall, older man with precisely parted silver hair, stepped in, accompanied by the imposing John Davis from HR and Anna Prescott, the no-nonsense office manager, who also happened to be Mandy's direct supervisor. Their faces were stony. Mandy's stomach lurched at the sight of them. "Miss Black," Samuel said, ignoring Kit except for a curt nod, "we have a very serious situation on our hands." Mandy clutched the envelope. I know, he had the photos. He threatened to sue the company," John Davis interjected, crossing his arms. His usually ruddy face was turning a deeper shade of crimson by the second. "He claims we knowingly allowed an affair between you and Mr. Sean Thompson, thus violating multiple codes of conduct. He mentioned potential legal action if we fail to address it." Mandy's eyes flicked to Anna Prescott, who looked furious and humiliated. "I can't believe I'm even standing here dealing with this," Anna's words were clipped. "This type of thing in our office. We pride ourselves on our professional environment, Miss Black. This is unacceptable." Kit squeezed Mandy's hand reassuringly, but said nothing. Mandy swallowed hard. I made a mistake," she stammered. "This is personal. I never meant for it to affect the company." Samuels raised an eyebrow. "Your husband, ex-husband, soon-to-be, doesn't seem to think so. He told us he'll handle this matter privately for now, but only if you speak to him and reach some arrangement. Mr. Davis here has another meeting scheduled with Sean Thompson after this to gather his side of the story. We expect more clarity soon." Mandy's cheeks flamed again. She could hardly lift her gaze from the table. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say right now." Samuels offered her a stern look. "Go home. Talk to your husband. Then we'll figure out your future in this organization. Understand?" Unable to form any coherent response, Mandy simply bobbed her head. She rose from the chair, and Kit slipped an arm around her shoulders again. As they walked out, every occupant of the open-plan office seemed to freeze and stare. Mandy did her best to keep her gaze locked on the exit, ignoring the swirl of disapproving or prying eyes. By the time they reached the parking lot, Mandy was trembling uncontrollably. She paused beside her black Hyundai Santa Fe, rummaging for her keys, tears sliding behind the lenses of her sunglasses. God, Kit, how am I supposed to face him? He burned every possible bridge, humiliated me at work. And those pictures, everyone saw them. Kit gently rubbed Mandy's back. I don't know, hun. I wish I had the answers. But if you don't go home and handle this, your job is on the line. Your entire life is on the line. Mandy pressed her lips together, eyes stinging. Slowly, she climbed into the SUV. Kit watched her start the engine and back out of the parking space. Mandy gave a small, desperate wave, then turned onto the street. She had no idea that the worst was yet to come. The drive home was slow, weighed down by heavy traffic. Mandy could barely keep her thoughts straight. The humiliation of having her affair displayed so publicly warred with the gut-wrenching dread that Eric might do far more damage. He had always been a man of quiet intensity, but after returning from Afghanistan, he grew guarded, aloof. She had thought it was just the strain of being away. Now she knew he had discovered her indiscretions. It was the biggest betrayal of all, and it was happening to her. Twice on the highway, she nearly rear-ended the car in front of her because her eyes brimmed with tears. It took over an hour, but finally, Mandy pulled onto the street leading to their suburban home. She noticed something was off. Black smoke curled against the sky, drifting from the direction of her house. Her heart pounded. As she got closer, she saw orange flames licking at the windows. Her entire body seized with horror. She slammed the brakes and pulled over, practically stumbling out of the SUV. A pungent, acrid smell hit her nostrils. Several neighbors stood at a distance, some filming with their phones, others talking frantically. Sirens were audible, growing louder by the second. Mandy stared at the inferno that had once been her cozy, picture-perfect home. "Oh my God, no, no, no!" she screamed. "Randy, where's Randy? Somebody tell me where my son is!" No one answered immediately. Some neighbors gave her sympathetic glances. One tried to approach, but she backed away, wild with panic. The front yard was scorched with a single word spelled out in blackened, burned grass. Cheater! Her knees threatened to buckle again at the horror of it. A tall man in a baseball cap approached from behind, stepping out of a battered Chevrolet. He pressed a phone to his ear. "She's here," he said simply, then disconnected. Mandy whipped around, fear and confusion swirling inside her. "Who are you?" she gasped, but he just gave her a brief shrug and headed back to his car, as if his presence had been purely to confirm her arrival. The wail of a fire engine tore through the air. Through the smoke, she could see no sign of Eric's truck. Was that a relief, or a sign of something worse? She scrambled to the side, yelling at a neighbor. "Have you seen Randy? Have you seen my little boy?" Mrs. Johnson, an elderly woman from 2 doors down, emerged from the small crowd. "Mandy, dear, I saw Eric drive off earlier with Randy. He told me not to worry. He said everything was under control, then the fire started." Mandy's chest constricted with terror, shock, and heartbreak. He started the fire. How could he? Another neighbor ran up, phone in hand. "Mandy, the fire department's on it. They said they'll try to salvage what they can, but it's not looking good. You need to stand back. You're too close." Salvage. She swallowed a hysterical laugh. Everything was gone. Photographs, mementos, Randy's toys. She watched the flames devour years of their shared life. Her phone vibrated, startling her. She fumbled for it, hoping, praying. It was Eric or someone who had news about her son. She saw his name on the screen. With shaking hands, she answered. "Where's Randy?" she cried, tears blurring her vision. "Eric, you can do whatever you want to me, but please don't hurt our son." There was a pause before Eric spoke, his voice chillingly calm. "Randy's fine. He's asleep in the back seat of my rental right now," she exhaled sharply. "He's safe." Why are you doing this? Why did you burn our house down?" "Why?" Eric repeated. A bitter laugh traveled through the phone. "Because I'm done letting you set the terms, Mandy. You think you can humiliate me, sleep with Sean while I'm serving overseas, and I'll just keep paying the mortgage on a house you invite your lover into?" Her stomach twisted. "Eric, you can't just destroy everything we built together. These are our memories. Randy's home. You've gone insane." "Insane? No." His voice was clipped. "I prefer decisive. I got everything I need out of that place and decided to send you a message. So how do you like your front yard? Pretty sure the letters show up nicely from the sky." Maybe the local news choppers will catch wind of it, pun intended. She could scarcely breathe. Her tears were hot, scalding her cheeks. This is monstrous. You're out of control. Eric, I'm begging you. Let me see Randy. A dark pause. I don't think that's wise, especially after I had to find out about your affair from a private investigator. You might want to focus on cleaning up your mess, Mandy. Your job might not be waiting for you tomorrow. That's not fair. You humiliated me at the office, threatened the entire company with a lawsuit, and now you've burned our house. Why are you punishing me like this? She pleaded, voice cracking. There was a faint noise on Eric's end, a whispery sigh. Then a hard edge entered his tone. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that you spat on our vows? Is it fair that I came home from a war zone only to see videos of my wife moaning another man's name in our bedroom? Or that my own son witnessed you with him? No, Mandy. Fair flew out the window the second you spread your legs for that bastard. The harshness of his words cut through her like a blade. She staggered, struggling to stand upright, phone clutched in her trembling hand. Eric, please, if you ever loved me, if you still do, let's just talk face to face. Let me at least hold our son. Don't take him away from me. You and I have nothing left to talk about, Eric replied, cold finality lacing every syllable. As for Randy, he's the only part of this family worth saving. I won't let you poison him like you poisoned our marriage. Her vision swam with tears as the line went dead. She swayed on her feet, and someone, another neighbor, had to grab her shoulders to steady her. She looked up, blinking away tears. The sky was thick with gray smoke from the house. She knew that everything in her life, her husband, her family, her illusions, was going up in those flames piece by piece. Mandy sat on the curb across the street, watching fire crews extinguish the last tongues of flame devouring her house. Yellow caution tape now blocked the driveway. Small pockets of smoke still curled from the blackened roof. Her eyes stung from the smoke and from the relentless flow of tears. She had no idea where Eric had taken Randy. She couldn't imagine how to salvage any part of her life now. Then she heard the rumble of a familiar engine. A sleek silver sedan pulled up, and out stepped Sean Thompson, the man who had once seemed so irresistible, the man whose arms had consoled her loneliness, at a terrible cost. He caught sight of the devastation, his face contorting in shock. Mandy, he called, rushing over. I heard from a coworker about the scene at the office, and the news is reporting a house fire. Are you okay? God, your face. Your clothes are covered in soot. She glared at him for half a second, torn between relief and anger. Part of her needed comfort. Part of her remembered that he was partially responsible for the meltdown of her marriage. No, Sean, she whispered. I'm not okay. Eric, he did this. She gestured to the smoking ruins. He burned our house. He has Randy. And I don't know where they are. Sean's eyes widened. He crouched beside her, ignoring the curious stares of neighbors. Jesus, I knew he was furious, but I didn't think he'd... I'm so sorry, this is all my fault. Her chest tightened, recollecting the humiliating moment when the divorce attorney had waved that damning photo around the office. If she had never let this affair happen, none of this would have transpired. But there was no going back now. She heard the shrill ring of her phone once again. Her hand shook as she answered, half hoping it was Eric. Instead, a voice crackled across the line. Mandy, it's your father. We saw the local news. Are you all right? Where's Eric? Where's Randy? The mention of her father's voice made her stomach roil. Eric had revealed something shocking, that it wasn't her father who cheated on her mother during his Navy days, but the other way around. Everything she'd believed for decades had apparently been a lie. Dad? She choked out. Everything's ruined. He took Randy. My house is on fire. I don't know what to do. Stay put. We're on our way, her father said firmly. We'll figure it out, okay? You're not alone. Whatever's going on with Eric, we'll help you get Randy back. Mandy nodded, feeling a distant sense of relief. Then she ended the call and looked at Sean. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. He hates you more than anything. If he finds out you're around me right now, Sean grimaced. He already knows. He has to. The pictures, the phone taps, everything. He's out for blood. Swallowing hard, he quickly added, Let me help you, Mandy. If you need a place to stay, money, whatever it takes. I can't just leave you on the street. And we need to talk about everything. A flicker of old affection surfaced in Mandy's chest. but it was drowned by guilt and the raw memory of the entire office seeing them in a compromising position. "I appreciate the offer," she said, voice trembling, "but I'm not sure if going with you will make anything better." He was about to respond when a commotion erupted behind them. A black SUV screeched to a stop, passenger door flung open. Out stepped Eric, looking disheveled, eyes dark with rage. Mandy jolted upright. She scanned the back seat to see if Randy was inside, but the rear windows were tinted, and she couldn't see a thing. "Eric, where is Randy?" she cried, running toward him, ignoring the caution tape. The firefighters took note of the confrontation, but none interfered. "Where is my son?" Eric's lip curled in a vicious sneer. "Safe." His gaze flicked to Sean. "And far away from that scum." Sean bristled, taking a step closer. "Look, we need to talk. What you're doing is psychotic, burning a house, threatening lawsuits. You can't just abduct your son." "Abduct?" Eric spat the word with venom. "He's my child. And you—" He took a menacing step closer to Sean. "You've got some nerve showing your face here." Sean raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm just worried about Mandy and the boy. This is crossing lines no one should cross." A derisive laugh spilled from Eric's lips. He turned to Mandy, eyes blazing with malevolence. "And you want to stand here with your lover in front of our smoldering home and lecture me on crossing lines?" The cyclical swirl of shame and fury spiked in Mandy. She looked around at the destroyed remains of their life. "You've gone way too far," she whispered. "This is evil. You humiliated me at my job, threatened me on the phone, and now you've destroyed everything. I'm begging you, just let me see Randy. We can figure out the rest later." Eric let out a cold chuckle. "Oh, we'll figure it out, all right. But not today, and certainly not the way you hope. I have full intention of leaving this wretched town. We'll find a new place, a new life, far from you. Randy deserves better than a mother who can't keep her legs closed." Sean stiffened, anger flaring in his eyes. "You watch your mouth." Before anyone could stop him, Eric backhanded Sean across the face. The impact sent Sean staggering backward, nearly losing his balance. Mandy shrieked in alarm. Two neighbors hurried forward, trying to break up the emerging altercation. Sean regained his footing, blood trickling from a split lip. He glared at Eric. "You're going to regret that," he snarled. "Oh, am I?" Eric hissed, stepping closer to Sean. He was slightly shorter, but carried a wiry, ex-military build that promised strength and agility. "You think you can sleep with another man's wife and expect a handshake?" Mandy lunged between them, arms outstretched, heart hammering. "Stop! Both of you! Stop this right now!" But Eric shoved her aside, forcing her to stumble on the uneven ground. She fell onto one knee, wincing in pain. Sean took advantage of Eric's distraction. He swung a fist at Eric's jaw, but Eric dodged nimbly and retaliated with a swift kick to Sean's shin, sending him to his knees. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers as they realized this was no simple spat. Tears blurred Mandy's vision. She had to end this madness. "Eric!" she screamed. "He's not worth it, please! I'm the one you're angry at, not him! Just let him go!" Sean, clutching his leg, managed to scramble backward. Eric stood over him with a contemptuous stare. "Get out of here before I break your neck." The tone was so dangerously calm, it made Mandy's blood run cold. Shaken and fuming, Sean rose with difficulty. "You'll pay for this!" he spat, looking more humiliated than hurt. He glanced at Mandy, pain in his eyes. Then, as though deciding it was best to retreat, he limped back to his silver sedan and peeled away in a screech of tires. Eric brushed invisible dust from his sleeves. "Coward," he muttered. Then he turned his attention back to Mandy, who was on the ground, tears streaming. The acrid smell of smoke clung to the air, matching the suffocating heaviness in her chest. She forced herself to stand, ignoring the pain in her knee. "Where is my son?" she demanded, trembling. "Give him back to me. I'm his mother." Eric gave her a cruel smirk. "Randy is in a safe location with someone I trust, so you can forget about waltzing in and taking him. I told you before, you've lost the right to call yourself his mother." Mandy was about to protest when she felt a wave of nausea twist her stomach. The stress, the heartbreak, the adrenaline of the confrontation, it all churned inside her. She doubled over, heaving, tears leaking from her eyes. Then came a jolt of a different realization. There was more to her symptoms than anguish and panic. She shut her eyes, trying to regain control. Eric's look of contempt deepened. "What's with the theatrics now? You can't manipulate me with tears and sob stories. I'm past that. She shook her head, swallowing hard. It's not that, she whispered, voice catching. She had sworn she would keep this to herself until she was certain, but now, cornered, she saw no alternative. Eric, there's something you need to know. He crossed his arms, glaring at her with a mixture of boredom and anger. Well, spit it out. I got places to be. The next words spilled out in a torrent of desperation and regret. I'm pregnant. Silence. Even the crackling remnants of the fire seemed to hush for a moment. The firefighters were stepping away from the property, now that the flames were mostly extinguished. A few neighbors edged closer, clearly eavesdropping. Eric's eyes narrowed, confusion knitting his brow. Pregnant, he echoed, his tone suspicious, not concerned. You expect me to believe that child is mine? After I've seen what you do with other men? She pressed a hand against her abdomen, tears renewing their path down her cheeks. It's not yours. The words came out barely above a whisper. He stared at her, uncomprehending. Come again? She squeezed her eyes shut in shame. It's Sean's baby. For a moment, Eric seemed stunned into silence. Then a slow transformation overcame him. Rage, contempt, and a kind of perverse satisfaction all mingled on his face. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, another car pulled up, screeching to a halt. Mandy's father and mother jumped out, their anxious faces scanning the chaotic scene. Mandy! Her father called, rushing over. He took in the charred house, Eric's hostile stance and his daughter's tear-streaked face. What the hell is going on? Eric offered a sardonic grin. Ask your daughter. She has a talent for— Enough, Mandy's father snapped. He stepped between them, his posture protective. Her mother hovered behind, eyes wide with horror at the wreckage. Where is my grandson? And why is my daughter in the middle of this war zone? A cruel smile curled on Eric's lips. Your grandson is safe with me. As for your daughter, maybe you should ask about her new pregnancy. Seems we're all finding out interesting things today. Mandy's father's eyes whipped toward her. Pregnancy? Mandy, is that true? She couldn't meet his gaze. The shame was too heavy. Dad, I'm so sorry. I made terrible mistakes. Eric seized the moment to twist the knife. She's carrying Sean's baby. And you want to know why your house is on fire? Because your dear son-in-law finally decided to defend what's left of his dignity. Her father's face hardened with a controlled fury. You have no right to keep Randy from Mandy, no matter what happened. And you sure as hell have no right to endanger people's lives by torching a house. You want to talk about dignity? This is barbaric. Eric stepped closer, glaring at Mandy's father. The older man stood his ground, fists clenched. I have every right, Eric hissed. I won't let a cheater raise my son. And as for burning the house, that was a statement, not an accident. Mandy's mother, Lisa, hurried to Mandy's side, laying a trembling hand on her daughter's shoulder. She eyed Eric warily. Are you insane? You could be arrested for arson, Eric. This is madness. Just, please, bring Randy back. Mandy's father nodded, clearly trying to keep himself from throwing a punch. Your vendetta won't fix anything. If you walk away with that boy, we're calling the police. You're kidnapping him. Eric's lip curled again. Try me. I've got enough blackmail on your daughter's affair to bury her in court. Child custody, visitation rights. It all goes out the window once the judge sees the pictures, the videos, everything I have on Mandy. No judge in their right mind will give her custody. Mandy's mother let out a small sob, covering her mouth. Eric, we understand you're hurt, but this is going too far. He barked a bitter laugh. No, Lisa, this is justice. Consider it a small portion of what your daughter deserves. That was the final straw for Mandy's father. He lunged forward, but a neighbor and a firefighter managed to grab his arms before he could tackle Eric. Eric stepped back, raising his hands defensively. You want to fight me too? Looks like your daughter's baby daddy already tried and failed. Mandy reached out, her voice cracking. Dad, please, no more violence. She turned to Eric. Why are you doing this? You weren't always cruel. The man I married would never have done something so heartless. Eric snorted. Then the man you married died in Afghanistan, maybe. He sure as hell didn't survive your infidelity. Before she could respond, he whipped out his phone. You know what? I've spent too long here already, and my son is waiting. I only came back to see if you'd arrived to gawk at your new bonfire. Now that you have, I'm leaving. Don't try to follow me. Mandy's father wrenched free from the arms restraining him, glaring. You walk away with that boy, and I swear I will follow you. I will tear this county apart if I have to. Eric rolled his eyes, then pressed a button on his phone. Almost instantly, a battered taxi van pulled up to the curb. The driver leaned out the window. Mr. Black? Need a ride? Yeah, Eric said curtly, stepping around the small group. Just give me a second. Mandy, trembling, tried one last desperate plea. Eric, please, I'm begging you, let me see Randy, or at least let me talk to him. He's only 3, he's probably terrified. A flicker of pain crossed Eric's face, barely detectable. He's not terrified, he's with his father, the one who actually cares about him. I'm done talking. Goodbye, Mandy. If you try to come after me, you'll regret it. And with that, he slipped into the passenger seat of the taxi. The door slammed shut, and the van rolled away. Mandy stared after it, her face lined with tears, her entire soul hollowed out by despair. The only thing left of her marriage was the smoldering ruin behind her and the devastating knowledge that Eric had abducted Randy, leaving her pregnant with another man's child, and no idea where to turn. Her father placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. Mandy, he whispered, we're calling the police. We'll tell them everything. She choked out a small, mirthless laugh. He has photos, videos, evidence of everything I did, Dad. He'll twist it all, show I'm an unfit mother. I've lost my son already. She sank to her knees on the curb, face hidden in her hands, and wept. The world around her felt shattered beyond repair. Lisa knelt beside her daughter and embraced her, while Mandy's father dialed 911, explaining in a grim, measured tone that a child had been taken by a potentially dangerous ex-soldier. The neighbors hovered, uncertain whether to step in or leave. The sizzling remnants of the house popped and crackled. Thin wisps of smoke still spiraled into the cloudy sky. In the center of it all, Mandy saw a future as bleak as the blackened timbers before her. She had done terrible things, but nothing could have prepared her for the cruelty Eric had unleashed. Now, pregnant by her former lover, humiliated at work, homeless and separated from her only child, she felt a sorrow deeper than she had ever known. Yet a tiny seed of resolve planted itself in her heart. I will find Randy, she thought, tears shimmering on her cheeks. I will not let Eric vanish with him. Despite her shame, her guilt, and her heartbreak, she felt a faint spark of maternal strength. All right, her father was saying to the 911 operator. Yes, I understand. Please hurry. He ended the call and looked at his wife and daughter. They're sending an officer? Let's figure this out together, as a family. Mandy glanced at her mother, who gave her a teary nod. She closed her eyes, letting the wave of devastation wash over her once more. Eric might have incinerated her life, but as long as there was hope, any chance at all, she would fight to be with her son again. The confrontation had ended in violence, heartbreaks, and a horrifying revelation about her pregnancy. But the story was not over. One day she would face Eric again. And on that day, she vowed to stand strong and refuse to be the broken, powerless victim he expected. No matter how monstrous he became, no matter how many times he threatened her, she would not abandon her child. She knew it would be an uphill battle, attorneys, custody lawyers, old personal demons. Yet in the ashes of her old life, she found a single ember of courage. I will get Randy back, she repeated silently, pressing a protective hand to her abdomen where new life stirred. Even if that meant facing Eric's wrath in court or confronting the demons of her own unfaithfulness, she would not quit. She had already lost too much. She would not lose her children to the man she once loved, or to the man who had shown himself capable of turning into a ruthless villain, hell-bent on destroying everything in his path. Sobbing quietly, she leaned into her mother's arms. In the distance, the sirens grew louder. The long road to justice and redemption had only just begun.